Okay, here we are live at beautiful Seminole County, USA, on the Winter Springs Oviedo line, and I'm here with David Smith. And the date and place of the interview is, once again, we're in Winter Springs, and the date is November 20th, and I'm with David Smith, State Representative. And David, tell me a little about your position as a state representative, what district and what date of birth you have.
Right. Well, I'm born 17 March 1960. I was elected to the Florida House of Representatives in 2018, so I'm happy to represent the people of East Seminole County here in the state of Florida.
Outstanding, and you're right behind me, which is wonderful. And basically just you and I, and we're doing this for the Never Forgotten Memorial Organization. And let me ask you, Dave, what war and branch of service did you serve?
I spent 30 years in the United States Marine Corps and served as a helicopter pilot. All my combat time was serving in Iraqi Freedom.
OIF, oh yeah. So what was your rank again?
I retired at the rank of colonel.
Okay, outstanding. And you said the type of work you performed was basically a helicopter pilot. So in some situations, you obviously had some serious gunfights. Would I say, would that be true?
Oh yeah, I did my duty and flew 52 combat missions. Other than that, I was while deployed. We were based in Kuwait, and then we would go forward with the grunts into Iraq. But when I wasn't flying with 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, I was a senior watch officer in the Tactical Air Command Center.
Outstanding. Okay, and now were you drafted? No, of course you weren't drafted. You're too young for that. So you did enlist.
I had a naval ROTC scholarship to Texas A&M, so I was graduated in the morning, commissioned in the Marine Corps in the afternoon, and left the next day for a 30-year career.
Wow. And you were living in what part of Texas at the time?
My grandparents, I grew up as an Army brat, but my grandparents were living in Victoria, Texas, so that was my home of record when I entered the Marine Corps.
And why did you join? Because your family, your generations had involved in military service?
Again, like I mentioned, my father was a career Army officer, Vietnam veteran, so I spent my life tagging around from base to base with him, and then again had the scholarship to Texas A&M, and then I got there like everybody. My scholarship was technically a Navy scholarship, and then you chose Marine Corps Navy option, as they called it. And when I got there, I went Marine option solely based on, I knew I wanted to be a pilot, but the Marine officer instructors, the staff, the difference, in my opinion, at the time between the Navy and the Marines were very obvious, and the Marine Corps I thought was the best, and that's what I did.
Yeah, I do believe so too. And do you recall your first days in service, boots on the ground, the first days? Do you recall that?
Yeah, certainly would be. It'd have to consider officer candidate school in Quantico, Virginia, where every that's where all Marine Corps officer candidates go, and then once you're commissioned, once you complete that and get your degree, then you're back to Quantico for 6 months of training called the Basic School, TBS. And every Marine officer, doesn't matter if you're a pilot, an infantry officer, or a lawyer, everybody goes through the same 6 months. Male, female, no, the Marine Corps doesn't care. That's the basic molding of Marines, where every Marine's a rifleman and every lieutenant's a platoon commander.
And what did it feel like being that young, taking on so much training?
It was normal for me, just having gone through Texas A&M, which is I was in the Corps Cadets there, so I wore a uniform through college 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and again grew up around people in uniform and duty stations, and so it was an easy transition for me.
And do you remember any type of boot camp training experiences that really stand out? You think of any?
Oh yeah. I mean, officer candidate school in Quantico, Virginia, in the summer was just melting hot. and just the brutal humidity, and you just and man, I tell you, I wouldn't trade it for all the world, but I hated every single day.
Yeah.
I was there, and I counted them down until I could graduate and get out of there. But it was just something I had to do.
Yeah.
I had to complete it. You could not get to commissioning without it, and I just gutted it out.
Yeah. So, do you remember any of your instructors? There's one that stands out with me, Drill Sergeant Thomas. He was just an outstanding guy. But do you remember any of your instructors?
Like there was yesterday.
Yeah.
And again, because we had Staff Sergeant Sauer and Gunny Wright were my platoon sergeants, and because they were the enlisted instructors at other colleges, and I'll never forget Gunny Wright, who was the Marine officer instructor at Penn State at the time, and Gunny Wright, and he would tell us we are going to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, was he was a tough guy from South Philadelphia, and he let you know it, and you stayed out of his way, and you just tried to just keep out of his line of sight.
Right.
I can remember almost halfway through, maybe it was a little over halfway through officer candidate school, we were, school circle, and he was talking to us, and he looked at me and go, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Smith," and he was like, "Oh, you're doing good," and it was because I didn't know who I was. So eventually I'd never been in trouble. So
Right, that's good.
It was, boy, Gunny Wright.
Yeah.
Man, I think I still have nightmares.
So, how did you get through it? Was it writing letters back to family? Was it just being, that support system you had? So, how did you get through those hot, melting days that you said earlier?
Yeah, it's just the camaraderie, the shared misery. We other platoons, 5 platoons in our company, and we had by far the toughest platoon. So other guys are out going on liberty, and we're there just field day in our squad bays and scrubbing things, or fun and games where we're marching around the squad bay holding our foot lockers till we couldn't hold our arms up, and that kind of stuff. But it was tough. But the shared misery of your other candidates, you just it was a bonding experience.
Driving on, right? Yeah. So you said earlier, which wars did you serve? You said you served in the Persian Gulf. And then you said both Iraqi freedom and also enduring freedom?
No, just I spent a little bit of time in Pakistan on my way to Afghanistan, but never made it there. So all my combat time and experience was in Iraq.
Iraq. So how was it that first day? What do you remember the first day arriving in Iraq, and what was it like?
Well, we first got to Kuwait. I went over as a part of the advance party for 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing in late October of 2002. So, and we had to build up the bases for the air wing to fly in, and we were pouring concrete. I was setting up the training, and it was a very busy time, very aggressive schedule. My boss, I was in the G3 in operations, and my boss, actually the wing commanding general at the time, Major General Jim Amos, came over with us. So the commander of the wing was a part of the advance party, and we were on an Air Force base, so we had to get everything set up to bed down the air wing as they flew in. But all jets, C-130s, all the helicopters at the bases of El Jabber and Ali Asalem, and it was a great time, but we had a lot of responsibility, a lot of work, a lot of independent, just go get it done. And General Amos went on to be 4 stars and be the first aviator commandant of the Marine Corps. I still consider him a good friend.
Oh, great, outstanding. So how about A-10 Thunderbolts? Did they keep you up at night when they came in?
Yeah, they had A-10s and F-16s at El Jabber.
At any time they fly in, right? I mean, they wake you up at any moment.
Yeah, there was because they were still doing Operation Southern Watch, so they had aircraft in the air almost at all time, and they recovered at El Jabber in Kuwait.
So your job assignment, you were in operations, setting it up, getting ready for the base to be properly run and everything. So any other assignments that stand out?
Well, it was my job. I was a part of building the air tasking order, which is the flight schedule, is where every aircraft is launched. Before we launched the invasion from Kuwait into Iraq, I did one of my responsibilities as the future operations officer for the wing was all the training. So it was active and especially reserve units that were activated and came into theater. We had to get them up to training. We also had British commandos assigned with us at the same base, and I had to get them some training. And so you'd have flight crews that needed to get current on night vision goggles or low-level navigation or parachute jumps and refueling and all those kind of rapidly getting people sharpen their skills through training before we launched the invasion.
And what year was that? Was that 2002?
It was 2002, and then we launched the invasion would be March 18th, I think it was, 2003.
Day after St. Patrick's Day.
It's going north. It was somewhere right in there because again we launched in the middle of the night, so sometimes what day did the war actually start? Who knows? So.
Was there a tower? Did you guys build a high observation tower?
Well, there was El Jabber was already was a Kuwaiti airfield, and the U.S. Air Force also operated out of there. So the Kuwaitis flew out of there, U.S. Air Force, and then all the other transient jet aircraft that came through Kuwait were out of El Jabber.
So how many days from that point did you finally see combat from that?
October into March. I think my first combat mission was up into Al-Nazariya up through April and on there. So it was a couple weeks after we kicked off the launch. Then I finally made it onto the flight schedule.
Great. So did you carry a pistol and an M4?
Yes, I always carried a 9mm on my body, on my person, and then we had an M4 that kind of clipped in to the seat of the helicopter behind you in case you ever went down. You could grab that when you egress the aircraft.
So were there many casualties in your unit when you did see combat?
No, I think we only lost we lost aircraft and Marines in training to working up, and as I don't think actually during my time there, or really what is typically referred to as OIF 1, that we actually lost any aircraft to enemy fire, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. So, were there any rollover accidents? Humvees killing off?
Oh yeah. With all the convoys, there were always accidents. People would flip Humvees just driving around in the sand, driving too fast. Again, I think we probably lost more Marines in training in the non-combat related than anything else.
So, with that, jogging your memory on that, can you tell me about a couple of your most memorable experience? Your most memorable experience?
Yeah, probably the one I just happened to be speaking to a group of junior ROTC students recently and relayed this story to them. Would have been sometime in April of 2003. We, I think, as a bend in the river, as I refer to it, is a place called Salman Pak, Salmanpak, Salman Pak, and it was a terrorist training camp. I mean, they had like a 737 jet airliner in the sand. They had trains. They had buses, and they taught hijacking, other type of buildings. And it was a terrorist training camp. And we turned that place into next to nothing. And again, we were over into Iraq, big picture, not all that long after 9/11, and where those terrorists, 19 terrorists, had attacked us on American soil. So I would have to say that raid and it included, B-52 arc light to artillery, two Marine infantry battalions sweeping through at night, and I was flying the command and control aircraft where the regimental commander was directing the ground from our aircraft, and flight of two, section of two Hueys is what I flew, and with the big radio package in the back, and commander in one aircraft, the G3 or S3 battalion, S3 in the back, and for the regiment, and it was a great feeling because it felt like we were punching back after 9/11, and I was probably have to say that was the pinnacle of my flying career.
Now, when you lit them up with Hellfire missiles, and then you put the infantry in a few hours afterwards?
No. Infantry were already on the ground. Cobras were flying. I'm sure they probably did fire some Hellfire. I saw more rocket and 20 millimeter gun out of the Marine Cobras that were there. But we were calling in airstrikes from all different aircraft that were stacked up as we would find targets, and then. Essentially, we just kept turning the dirt over and over with fires from the air and artillery. Just 155s are just decimating the area, and then when the commander gave the command, regimental commander, then I'm pretty sure it was 1st Battalion, 7th Marines just swept through the area, and we could see it from, when you're flying on night vision goggles and you can see people, like it's daylight, and really was to see a battalion swing through the area and just work through the complete area of the peninsula, because it was again like a big major bend in the river that created this long peninsula where the training camp was, and I was not only a participant but a witness to history.
Right, and those night vision goggles, they basically illuminate off of heat, right? Is that why when you can actually see the body, like the torso?
Yeah, no, it's a light amplification.
Yeah.
The infrared is off of heat, but the night vision goggles, the ANVIS goggles, are a light amplification. So we're really seeing off of moonlight, starlight, and then any lights that are on the ground, which is typically too bright. But the moonlight and starlight are what allow us to fly at night and see fairly clearly.
And so the uniform's like a reflection on the uniform. Would that help with the NVGs? How do you actually see the body? Do you see
can see them? Yeah, because it turns not specifically, because everything has a green hue around it, and the night vision goggles at the time, they're better now, but. Almost 20 years ago, you had a 40-degree field of view, so it's really looking like it's like you're staring through two toilet paper rolls with green film over them. So you got to have your head on a swivel to keep the field of view and what you're looking at. And of course, the whole time you're flying with another helicopter right next to you, so you got to be careful about that. And the other thing we always had there is the wires and the towers and those kind of things that were not illuminated. So you really had to have your head on a swivel at all times. And then we're doing the mission, putting the regimental commander in a place to observe and direct the ground combat operations from our Huey aircraft.
Were you awarded any medals or citations for that mission?
I was actually contributed to my points on Air Medal, and then also for that specific action, I received an Air Medal in what they refer to as a Combat V, so on that specific mission.
So the V for Valor?
Yes.
Okay, outstanding. All right, so higher ranks may be asked about battle planning. Those who sustain injuries may be asked about the circumstances. So, anything you can tell about your battle planning? Was there a plan ahead when you first got in that helicopter? Did you practice or anything like that? Was there some type of battle plan?
Well, there's always a mission rehearsal. It's a critical part of success, and we rehearsed quite a bit with the ground units. A lot of sand table operations. We knew what the plan would be, but as they often say, which is very true, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So everything always has to be fluid and responsive, flexible. But you relied back on the mission type orders, and I can remember General Amos. We did this kind of the final battle plan with General Mattis at the time, former Secretary of Defense. General Mattis was the division commander. So General Amos, I can recall it like it was yesterday, walking around this big battle staff planning table, and General Amos is standing. General Mattis is seated in his chair as the division commander, and General Amos put his hands on General Mattis's shoulders and said, "All you commanders, listen to me." And got kind of paused and then said, "There's nothing," General Amos said, "there's nothing I won't do for this man. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" And he made it clear to everybody in 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing that we were to do whatever we needed to do to support the ground combat commander, and that's what we did.
So General Mad Dog Mattis,
Yeah.
Did he look like a mad dog?
General Mattis is a great guy. I've known him for 25 years, and he's got so many famous quotes, and obviously he's went on to be a combatant commander and CENTCOM, went to Secretary of Defense. Just a great officer, and most people will never know how absolutely funny the guy is. He's you see him on TV and things, and he's so stoic, or he's talking about killing terrorists and how fun it is, and so he's got this really kind of the warrior monk persona, but he's a hilarious guy to be around, and one of the funniest officers I've ever served with.
That's great to have that camaraderie with someone who's funny at the same time. And so how do you stay in touch with your family through all this? You're over there, obviously for at least 6 months, right?
Right.
So how do you stay in touch? Did you communicate back with them?
Write letters. I mean, you could still there wasn't a proliferation of phones to be able to call at all time, but you could still write letters and email and that kind of stuff.
Email was a big advantage, right?
Yeah.
That was something I was able to take advantage of as well. So what was the food like? I know they had contractors come in. Was it CBR or something like that? They came in and fed us. But how was your food over there?
Well, I tell you, at El Jabber and Ali Asalim, where they had chow halls, the food was great.
Yeah.
I mean, really good. Not so much when we're out, because the air wing would, we would get an air tasking order, and we would fly to the division headquarters or regimental headquarters, be assigned to a battalion, and then we would stay in the field with the ground units, flying in support of them, doing whatever missions they needed for 3-4 days at a time, and you really stayed until your relief aircraft showed up, right. And then you'd fly back. About 4 days is the maximum our helicopters were supposed to go without maintenance. So we'd have to, because of the desert conditions, we'd have to fly back to Kuwait, wash the engines, get the sand out of them, do those kind of things. And typically every no more than 4 days, another section of Hueys would fly up and land and replace us. And sometimes we wouldn't know if they were coming or not. And you just stayed and did the job until you were relieved.
And so did you have plenty of supplies when you had to hunker down for 4 days?
Yes and no. I tell you, remember the real tactic that everybody talked about was shock and awe. We were going to just roll right through the Iraqis, and to a great degree we did. Other than Fallujah or An-Azariya and some of the other more pitched battles, Basra to some extent. But man, we outflew our supply lines, and. But from time to time, we would have to go hunting for food or MREs, and water was more than anything. And they would, fly in crates, pallets of water, and but yeah, because you didn't want to drink what was around there, and I can remember, hunting for food and hunting for water when we were based bedded down with the grunts in particular.
Did you feel pressure or stress when you had to hunt for your own food?
No. I mean, you knew you'd find it eventually, and everybody's out there sharing. But sometimes you'd like crap. There'd be FARPs, forward area refueling points, where we'd arm and refuel, and you could typically get those. And the Marines would have somebody would be declared the mayor of this FARP, and you were able to go in and have some GP and mediums tents set up, and you could shut down, refuel, sleep during the day, and then because most of our missions were done at night early on, and then as we schwacked the Iraqis back further and further to Baghdad, then we flew more and more missions during the day.
Yeah. Okay, so was there something special you did for good luck? Like, something you carried around, maybe a coin or something that you did special for good luck?
I carried a Bible with me the entire time.
Best. Was it a pocket Bible?
Pocket Bible. I still have that Bible, and I carried that and had that with me when I was sworn in to the House of Representatives here in Florida.
Oh, outstanding. That's wonderful. And how did the people entertain themselves when you had that 4 days hanging out with grunts? You're an officer. How do you entertain?
We played some cards. Mostly, I tell you, you're so busy when you weren't actively flying or planning, for the next day's missions. You ate your chow and you hit the rack, and you got as much sleep as you could, just because you never knew when you were going to be woken up and said, "Hey, we need you to take these people here, do this there," and it was you got sleep where you could.
Right. And did you get leave? I mean, you had to get some type of leave, right?
No, not once combat operations started. The closest I got to taking leave was on the 1st of January, New Year's Day, 2003. We flew up to Germany to do the final planning for the essentially kicking off the war, and I forget the Army headquarters that was up there, but we flew up there and we spent like 3-4 days in Germany, and that was a good time because there wasn't no alcohol in a Muslim country.
Yes.
So we tried to drink as much beer as Germany had, and good times, and that's the closest thing from the time I got there to having a couple days off.
All right, R&R, you deserved it. Do you recall any particular humorous or unusual event? I remember the one story you told me about. You let your crew go take a little break, and that. I think that's a good one. You want to tell that one?
Well, that one this time. That wasn't in Iraq. That was actually in the Philippines in 1994, doing the 50th anniversary of the MacArthur's return to the Philippines, which is commonly referred to as the Battle of Leyte Gulf, and we were flying the SecNav, SecDef, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and SINCPAC fleet, all the admirals, because Hueys tend to be a VIP aircraft, and I had a detachment of 4 aircraft, and we were flying people around, and I let the crew, we were supposed to be on the ground for 3 hours while there was a parade and a reenactment ceremony, and so I let the crew go out into town, and lo and behold, the VIPs came back at about an hour and a half, and I didn't have any crew, so we had enough. I told my co-pilot, jump in the airplane. He started the aircraft up on his own, and the crew that were out in the Ville heard the aircraft start and went, "Uh-oh, what's going on?" and came running back, and it was. I thought my career was over.
Oh, right.
And I was a major at the time, and what was so funny was that night we were back aboard ship. We'd been operating off a ship, and I got called over the 1MC. It's like, Major Smith, report to the captain's quarters. And
you're like, uh-oh.
That's it. I'm like, that's done. It. I'm walking the plank. My career's over. They realized we were all screwed up, and there was the battalion commander that was there, the aide to the Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of the Navy, who was one of my old bosses, and wound up getting 3 stars. But he ended up, and he calls me in there and says, "I just wanted the captain and everybody to know what a great job you did, and and so responsive. And I really thought I was going in there and my career was over, and I wound up getting what they call a special fitness report. It's typically only get it when you're recommended for accelerated promotion.
Right.
And it was such a turnaround. And I'm just like, oh my God, these guys have no idea how
Right.
screwed up we were. And it ended up helping me get promoted to lieutenant colonel.
Look at that. Amazing, right? You got a Bravo Zulu for that. Outstanding. So what were some of the pranks that you or others would pull? I mean, being an officer, you might not pull as much as enlisted like we did, but is there any type of pranks you pulled?
Oh, there was always stuff. We, playing, I saw more than one guy that had to walk back from the showers because somebody taking his towel and all that kind of stuff, and you just goofing off. Because I tell you, was there with friends. That's, as I mentioned, I talked to these junior ROTC students, and I told them my combat experience was much different than others, and I volunteered to be there. I wanted to be there. I was one of the top pilots, Huey pilots in the Marine Corps. How could I let somebody else go do that job that I was better trained for? So I wanted to be there. I volunteered to go back. I came very close to getting orders to Afghanistan, and then they pulled the plug about 72 hours prior to me getting on a plane. And but I wanted to be there, and it was my obligation, and I just did my duty, but I felt I was properly trained to do it, and I was happy to have served.
What do you think of officers or other fellow soldiers that were in your unit? You mentioned earlier about camaraderie. What do you think of maybe some standout soldiers or other officers that really stood out?
I tell you, we had just a great group. My boss, John McLow, M-I-C-L-O-T. It sounds like Micklot, but John McLow was the G3. A great guy. He blended a staff in operations, in particular, of active duty and reservists. And the Marine reservists, I tell you, shockingly, and I'm not kidding you. There was a reserve unit that was out of Illinois, and I'll think of exactly where they were, what their designation was, but they ran we ran the Tactical Air Command Center, the TAC. So every mission, it's the hub of the wheel for the air wing. And we had a group of reservists that were better trained than the active duty Marines. Because they had, in their reserve capacity, they had nothing else to do but train when they would do their drill weekends. And they knew the air tasking order. I mean, we would do it when we would do an exercise 3 times a year as a wing staff. But these guys did it all the time, and the reserves were seamlessly integrated into the active duty, and they were. I was impressed, and I learned from them. And the funny thing was always the reserve colonels, though. They'd come over and okay, show me where's my tent, or where's my hooch, and have my driver get my bag, and we just literally laugh in their face. It was like, hey, grab your own gear,
Yeah.
follow me. You're in a tent with 12 other guys,
Yeah.
and that's just the way we all were, and you just did what you had to do. But their expectations of how life would be, and I can remember the chief of staff for 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, Colonel Yingling, just like the beer, but a great guy. And I would say, hey, Chief, I got the Colonel so-and-so out here. He's looking for his vehicle. And he'd just shake his head, and he goes, it was like that guy couldn't make major on active duty. That's why he's,
Right.
That's why he's a colonel in the reserves
Right.
now, and but it was good times and good people.
And did you keep a personal diary?
No, I didn't. I kept a couple of notes. I still snagged a couple of maps from some missions and those kind of things. I think they're declassified after almost 20 years.
Yeah.
But
Okay. And now we're going to go into a little after service questions. Okay. Do you recall the day your service ended?
Absolutely. 31 August 2012, and that's when 30 years and 17 days.
And where were you then?
In Orlando, Florida.
Orlando, Florida. And what did you do in the days and weeks afterward? Like you must have had R&R. You're like, I can just do nothing today, or maybe you went to Disney World. So what did you do?
No, I got a job when job offers. I made the transition. I had a job stepping right out of the Marine Corps, working in the simulation industry, which is very big in the Central Florida area. So kind of between really leaving, going on terminal leave, and my actually end of active service date, I took a couple of weeks off and actually went up to Gettysburg and walked the battlefield. I've done that about 10 times, I think. But that was my kind of summer break, was visiting some friends up the eastern seaboard and then walking the ground at Gettysburg. It was the 149th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, and they were doing a lot of rehearsals of live actors and reenactors in preparation for the following year, which would have been the 150th anniversary. Yeah.
So you said your education, you went through ROTC. Did somebody fund that, or was that supported by a GI Bill, or what was that?
No, it's out of high school and get to A&M, so the Marine Corps paid for my tuition and books and those kind of things, which paid was a fraction of the total cost. They don't pay for room and board, and I worked my way through college. I'd gone to a Votech high school and learned to weld. So I essentially, at Texas A&M, worked my way through college as a welder, and then was fortunate to, I graduated debt-free, partly because of the Marine Corps scholarship and mostly because I busted my ass and worked all the way through college.
Okay, and did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Absolutely, and friends that I'm still as close with today, and thanks to Facebook and social media and unlimited cell phone minutes and again, my Marine Corps buddies and friends back through college are the ones that helped me raise the money to get elected to the Florida House of Representatives.
Those friends there, right? Yeah. And did you join a veterans organization?
Yeah, I'm a member of American Legion Post 5404 in Winter Springs. I'm a member of the American Legion and Central Florida Marine Corps Foundation are a couple of groups that I'm active in right now here in Central Florida.
So we got to get you active to East Seminole County Post VFW 10139, right?
Happy
That'd
to
be
go out
great.
there.
That'd be great to do that. And so we're going to be closing it up here. What did you go on to do as a career after the war? You said you took on the simulation, and then you went from simulation to a state representative. Is that?
Yeah, I worked. So I retired 7 years ago. Went kind of, as I mentioned, springboarded out into the industry. My final command assignment in the Marine Corps is I ran the Marine Corps Office for Simulation and Training. Here, about 200 government civilians and Marines, managing about $1.4 billion worth of ranges and simulators all over the world at every Marine Corps base. Really the height of the war, and we were doing a lot of training facilities. We built replicas of Afghan villages. We did all the battle staff training, all the marksmanship training, indoor simulated marksmanship trainer, ISMIT. We had those fielded all around the world at Marine embassies and at units where, if you want to go out and increase your opportunities of qualifying on the rifle range, you do it all through simulation before you ever fire a real round. And driving a truck, learning to drive a tank or fly an aircraft, all that kind of stuff is all done through simulation. So using that last 3-year assignment in command here, that gave me the opportunity to just springboard right out into the industry. And so I did that for a few years, worked for a couple different companies, and then resigned from that as a general manager of a simulation company when I decided to focus on my run for the legislature. And I do the legislature full time, and I have my own consulting company now that I have, I think, 11 clients that give me project work from time to time to review their proposals and things that they're thinking about bidding on for federal contracts. I don't do any state work because I'm a state legislator. All my consulting is for federal contracts.
Okay, you're in a veterans organization. What kinds of activities does your post or association have?
We do a American Legion post in Oviedo. We do a coffee every Wednesday morning. In the VFW post in Winter Springs, we do a very large Veterans Day event, flag raising. That post is getting more and more active as they get younger members. And the Central Florida Marine Corps Foundation is the main backer of our Marine Corps Ball that we just had. So we do that every year, and we have I think they've changed their name, but they used to be Sixth Motor Company in Reserve Unit here down by Orlando Airport, and so the Central Florida Marine Corps Foundation raises money throughout the year, and we offset the cost, supplement. I think corporals and below, we pay for your ball ticket and a date if you have one, and then I think sergeant and above, we pay half the price of your ball ticket, and so we do that. We have hundreds of Marines that attend our Central Florida Marine Corps birthday ball, and those are some of the activities I'm involved in when I'm not in Tallahassee.
Well, I was really pleased to see you at the Seminole Stand Down. Yeah. Right? You got a chance to? Did you get a chance to speak at that one?
No, just with some of the people. But that's one of the things that I've been involved with veteran homelessness for some time, and getting veterans out of the woods, and get in that stand down. We help them with their medical needs and getting them a driver's license, getting them filing for benefits if they need it, and just trying to outreach to veterans that have fallen on hard times. And that's one of the things I'm focusing, using my experience from the military, and I understand the language, and I understand where they're coming from a lot of times, and I also understand what benefits they rate through their honorable service. But helping those unemployed, underemployed, or homeless veterans is a big part of why I'm in the Florida Legislature.
We served 71 homeless veterans that day. Yeah. One veteran, we pulled 13 of his teeth, so you can imagine how he walked out of there. But he's healthier now, you know. It was a great day. I was there the whole day. It just, you give back. It just feels so good to be a part of that. And how did your service and experiences affect your life? Now you're the state representative. You go on to support the community. How does that military experience affect your life?
Well, my service in the legislature is really just an extension of my lifetime of service. So you believe me, what they pay us in the legislature doesn't cover my bar tab. So you don't do this for the money, and you have to have a servant's heart. You have to realize you're putting yourself out there under some difficult times, a lot of political. It can get pretty ugly sometimes for no good reason, just the political discourse in our country today, and you just got to realize you're there for a higher purpose. And I think the good Lord has put me in a place to be able to help people and that's the walk He wants me to walk, and that's what I'm trying to do every day.
Do you think at some point that you'll support sanctuary cities?
Absolutely not. I don't think that's a good policy. And it violates the Constitution, and it's not what we do in Florida. As a matter of fact, we have a law that now in Florida that I voted for and helped pass last legislative session that prevents cities from enacting policies that don't enforce federal law.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
Well, it's been a pleasure to be with you. I am proud of my 30 years of service, honored that I had an opportunity to serve. Certainly not a hero, but I did my duty, and I stand by every decision I made and command that I had. I was very fortunate to have multiple command assignments, and I think all of the 30 years has paved the way for me to continue to serve the 2.1 million veterans that we have in the state of Florida. And I hope I live up to their expectations.
The mission continues with you, David Smith, and I want to thank you very much for coming on to the Library of Congress. Looking forward to the archive.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.